Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. I am really excited about the conversation we've got cooked up for you tonight. My name is Brandon Wolf. I use he, him pronouns, and I am the media relations manager at Equality Florida. I'm also a Black gay man living in Central Florida. And that's why I'm so excited about the conversation, as I mentioned, that we've got set up for you today. Before we get started, I just want to share a little bit of the basics of how you engage. Please feel free to hop into the comment section and share, things you like. Give a thumbs up, give a heart, whatever you feel in that moment. And also feel free to comment, share what you're thinking in the moment. This really is about engaging with each other. It's about having a dialogue with our entire community about what we're facing today. This conversation comes at a pivotal moment in our history. Once again, we are faced with the open wound of racism that we've seen so often throughout history. The brutal murders of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and Tony McDade have forced us once again to have this conversation with each other. The sad part is that discrimination, white supremacy, hate violence, and systemic racism are as American as apple pie. And this is not the first time that we've been in this place having this dialogue. I'm not sure that there are many people more equipped to have a dialogue about discrimination and hate violence than LGBTQ people of color, many of whom live right here in Central Florida. I am really excited for you to hear their voices, for you to hear their stories, for them to share with you how they're feeling in this moment and the journeys that they've all been on. Once again, my name is Brandon Wolf. I am from Equality Florida. You are watching A Seat at the Table. This is a new series put on by Come Out with Pride Orlando. We hope that the series continues to go on. As I mentioned, please hop in the comments, hop in the chat section. Let us know how you're feeling. Let us know if you're liking something, if you want us to go in a different direction. We look forward to engaging with you tonight. And so without further ado, I'd like to bring on my panelists for this evening. I'm really excited to introduce to you Angelica Sanchez, Nicole Parker, Lady Bree Adonis, and Reggie Warren. Thank you all for being here.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi.
Hello.
How are
Hello.
you?
Hello.
Yes. Yeah. Great. Thank you again for being here. I'm really excited that Come Out with Pride Orlando could put together this fabulous space for us to share. And I just want to note for everyone that this is just about a conversation, right? It's very casual tonight. It's how are we feeling? What are we thinking? We're going to talk about systemic racism. We're going to talk about our identities and being who we are in this community, and we're going to talk about the path forward. I think people are interested in hearing those perspectives right now, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from all of you. So, Angelica, we've known each other for a long time. I've got to start with you. And the question is going to be the same to all of you. I think it's the most important question. How are you?
I'm doing well, considering that this week is also the 4-year anniversary for the Pulse nightclub incident and being a survivor of that. Plus, with all that's going on with George Floyd and his murder and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud and so many others, along with Tony. And it's just been kind of a heavy couple of weeks, but thank God for therapy and being able to express myself and get myself through it.
Yeah, good. If you don't mind, I know you talked a little bit about some of the stuff going on, but can you share with us what the past week and a half, if you feel comfortable, have been like? What are some of the experiences you've had? How are things out in the community?
Well, as far as out in the community, I think that it's a really great thing that, so many people are protesting, so many people are, lifting their voices and being heard. And that it's not just us as Black people this time, that we actually have a array of nationalities and backgrounds and creeds and cultures that is actually jumping on board with us, because I think with what's going on with the administration from the top, so many people have been, cast out, talked about from people of Mexican heritage, people of Latinx heritage, people that are Jewish. You know, so many people have come under attack under this administration that we realize that the minority of us all are the majority of us all now, and we have something to say, and we're able to back each other up and have understanding and compassion for each other. So I'm feeling hopeful. Sometimes it gets heavy because it's really sad to see some of the things that are going on, but I'm I've always tend to be an optimistic individual, so I believe that we'll get through this because we've gotten through so many other hardships in life.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. And I appreciate you shouting out as well the 4-year mark of Pulse on Friday. Obviously means a lot to us here in Central Florida, and of course, just heaps onto the grief and pain that we're feeling already in the wake of the hate violence in the last couple of weeks. And
Can
so,
I
of course,
also say something?
yeah, absolutely, go for it.
It has been amazing to see, like, after Pulse, we never thought or couldn't even fathom that the whole world would rally behind us the way that it did. But to see that this issue has had the same effect on the world, and so many people are rallying against this, injustice of Black people. So I'm really, really happy to see that.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that same energy that we felt after Pulse, I'm feeling it right now, and that is what gives me optimism too. So thank you, Angelica Sanchez, fabulous performer here in Orlando. I've known you forever. So glad you're here with us tonight. Nicole, over to you. I know, Nicole, we are peers at Equality Florida. You also do work with the One Pulse Foundation. Same questions to you. How are you feeling? What's the last week and a half been like? What are you experiencing out there?
It's just a really like heavy feeling, because we're still dealing with COVID. So you have that, and seeing people sick and hurting and being distanced from each other and not being able to go to spaces already has an effect on you. And then you see, the things that are going on, and it's like, when you look at it, I totally agree. I'm loving the support that we're receiving. We finally kind of feel heard after so many years. But I mean, there is a sense of frustration, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention that. My frustration with people of color have been screaming this for years, for centuries. You know what I mean? And it's just unfortunate that it takes an incident like this to kind of catapult, because there's so many incidents before that should have started this revolution. But at the same time, I truly believe that whatever the tipping point is, we as a people are coming together. And like Angelica said, when you look out into the crowds, it used to just be Black people boycotting, protesting, but now so many nationalities are coming together just saying, this is not right, and it's just a really amazing to see. So I would say at the same end hopeful, but I really am, if I'm being honest. I'm not doing the best on my self-care, so I'm a bit drained, honestly.
Yeah. And thank you for calling that out, because I think, for me at least, it's easy to just assume that the strong folks in our community are strong, as they always are. But the reality is that sometimes it's the strong ones who need the most support in these moments. So appreciate you calling that out. And of course, appreciate all that you do with all the organization. I feel like you're everywhere all the time. So just really grateful. Don't forget that self-care. We need you. We need you. We need you. Reggie, let's go to you. You're on the board of Come Out with Pride Orlando, and so you've got that peek into the community in a way that many of us do not. Talk to me a little bit about, first of all, how are you? How are you feeling? How are you doing? And then, what's the last week and a half been like for you?
Well, it's been very, very hard. A lot of information coming out. A lot of things hitting us from both sides. That some things that we wouldn't even think that we would have to go through in 2020 that we're still going through today, and it continues to happen even as we're using our voice and shouting that this is wrong. But I'm very grateful that again, like, everyone's coming out to support us. There's so many mixed crowds out there, and I want to say thank you to those people, because we're not alone. And when other voices add, you will go louder than you would if on your own. So I love that piece that we're together in. I'm just, again, there's so much information. So I'm really drained on information, and also trying to spread the information, because not everyone has that same outlet. So making sure that everyone's aware of what's going on, keep everyone informed. I work in the downtown Paramore community, so a very predominantly Black community I live in as well. it's a lot of information, a lot of things happening in our community that we need everyone to know so that we can stand up together. And I'm just very drained. I'm excited that we got to get this chance to have this chat and to speak and to share what's going on to a better audience. And I'm just excited about this part because I think this part is what is missing for so long. Hearing our voices on a platform like this, hearing our voices, hearing our stories, which is what really needs to be heard.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, there is no substitute for representation. There's no substitute for our voices being heard. So I'm there with you. I'm feeling a lot of optimism from this group, a lot of hope, but also I think we're a bit tired, and I hear that as well. And then, of course, last but definitely not least, Lady Bree, another fabulous performer in town, a face we all know. Same questions go to you. How are you feeling? How's the last week and a half been? What are you experiencing out there?
Okay, I'm tired to say the
Yeah.
least. I am working and protesting at the same time. So I'm going on my fourth protest. So I am exhausted to say the least, as well as working my day job. And then now my other day job is just reopened and I'm already circling back to that. So I am utterly exhausted, but I refuse to stop. I absolutely refuse to stop. I pride myself on doing these protests because it's the kind of revolution that I think my generation needs to make sure that we remember, because this is not the first kind or not the first time any type of protests have happened. And I feel like a lot of people aren't realizing that this has been going on for decades. So I as Angelica said, I am so like just thrown back at the diversity within every protest that I've gone to, like the amount of just beauty and love and just understanding and resilience from Black, white, Asian, I mean, indigenous, everything. They're all out there screaming Black Lives Matter and pushing for the end all result, which is equality for the Afro community. And it's beautiful. So like, as exhausted as I am, I refuse to not continue to do this work because it's making headway, at least in Orange County. And I feel like I've been grateful and understanding that I've been in a community that's been a little more open than what normal people are usually experience. But at the same time, I've experienced moments in this same community. So I think upon that is also bringing an understanding that this community is very, very diverse, but also, we have our issues. So it's been a lot, but I plan on seeing my therapist in about a week and a half, so we'll address that.
Yes, exactly.
Call me in a week.
Listen, like Angelica said, thank God for therapy, because the last 4 years, my therapist has made a lot of money off of me. So thank God for that.
Yeah. For sure. So I'm come through.
Yeah, and I thank you again for being candid about, this is exhausting. It's exhausting that we have to be here again. It's exhausting that we have been here so many times. And I think, uniquely exhausting for people who experience discrimination on so many different levels, right? Not just because of the color of our skin, but also because of the way we love or who we are. All of those things seem to compound on each other. So I wonder, Angelica, coming back to you, if you have thoughts on how this moment is impacting LGBTQ people differently than others.
Well, I think it's affecting us differently for one, because we have to also feel as though we matter in this equation of Black Lives Matter. I mean, it's something that, sometimes we feel a little pushed aside, even though we've been at the forefront of, organizing and getting these things put together. If we look back at the history of Black Lives Matter, we know that it was started by queer individuals. And we had a lot of LGBTQ plus people that were organizing and helping to run certain things. But in the Black community, something that we don't like to talk about all the time, with the toxic masculinity issue that goes on, and also dealing with, the religious side of it, wherein, being who we are and being true to ourselves is something that is looked down upon. I mean, the whole issue of that's gay as hell, or, just people walking by someone trying to live your truth and they're saying, hell nah. It's just very hard to find our place within this. But what I've been telling a lot of people is that first and foremost, I'm Black. So whatever Black issues are, they do deal with me and who I am as an individual. But at the same time, if we could have a little more compassion and consideration for people like myself and like the people on the panel today, then we can move further as a race.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think we chatted the other day, and I think somebody on that call, I don't know if it was you, but said, when I walk in a room, I am Black, and that's how people see me. And that means that when I say Black Lives Matter, I mean my life matters. It's not one identity over the other. It's not like I can choose them. It's that they both exist at the same time. And when I walk through that door, that's what people see. And that's why this really matters in this moment.
Also, just the fact of when I was born, my family saw me as one thing. They had a dream for me as one thing. And those lessons still, run deep within me. I mean, I had to learn that being a Black young boy, that there were certain things that I could and could not do in public. There were certain things, a certain way that I had to be. But even with transgender individuals, we have to learn both sides of that, because when you're trying to be true to yourself and you're living your truth and you're coming to the person that you're truly meant to be, then I have to deal with this within my community plus against the world. And the rules still apply. We're scared to get pulled over. We don't want to do anything to even have to deal with the police officers. I mean, right now, with everything that's going on with COVID, I've been helping so many people with unemployment, but they're scared to do it because we don't want to do anything that has to deal with the government. We're completely scared of what could potentially happen. And I have to tell people, well, you have a 1099, you have a W-2. This is money that is for you. You're doing nothing wrong.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And Nicole, I don't know if you've had some of the same experiences or perspectives, but it does seem like LGBTQ people, and specifically transgender people, have it really doubly, triply hard right now.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of conversations going on, and we're all in the threads and we all see it. And I'm sure some of us have come across where it's like, when we say Black Lives Matter, that incorporates everybody. Why does the LGBTQ community have to say trans Black Lives Matter or LGBTQ lives matter? Why? Because we are swimming in a movement to try to see where we land in this. Majority of the people are looking at us as we're the freaks, what's going on, this, and that, even though there's a portion of people who say, when I say Black Lives Matter, that's everybody. That's not everybody. And even being somebody trans, I'm looking sometimes in the LGBTQ acronym for help and support. And like it's said by so many, the T is always silent. Trans people are the ones to show up for regardless of what's going on. But then when it's time for people to show up for trans people, everybody disappears. And, to say that time after time after time is one thing, but to see it time after time after time is really disheartening, and I don't think people understand that racism is a thing, number one, but being LGBTQ, being Black and LGBTQ on top of that, and having to navigate exactly what Angelica said, religion, families, it's very, very difficult. And it really frustrates me when I see that, when people are like, why do you differentiate trans Black Lives Matter? It's because we do, you know what I mean? If people really saw the statistics of how many trans Black women are killed every single day, how many of those murders go unsolved, how many of people are arrested and let go 2 or 3 days because of the cheap law. You know what I mean? All of these things are happening still to this day in 2020, and everybody turns a blind eye to it. So that's why we as LGBTQ people have specific rallies for it and have specific signs for it and really want to bring attention to it.
Yeah. I love that you say, the T is silent, because we think about the root of who we are as a movement. We think about the root of our progress, and it is rooted in transgender people of color. I mean, if we're being really honest with each other, right? Transgender people of color have been there from the very beginning, fighting tooth and nail.
Talk about Marsha.
Talk about Marsha. Talk about
exactly.
Sylvia.
Yes.
Yes, Marsha.
Right? these are the people that we owe our progress to, and how do we repay them for that fight? How do we repay them for that sense of persistence and resistance? We turn around and leave them in the dust in moments like this, and in moments where we're fighting for LGBTQ equality. That really irks me, and so I appreciate you both, kind of sharing that perspective. And I think it's especially true right now in this moment when we're talking about Black Lives Matter, to say very loudly and very clearly that that means Black trans lives matter too, right? So
Yeah.
Reggie, feel free, guys, this is just a conversation. So I'm going to move the questions around, but if you want to go back to something, if you feel fired up about it, please take it wherever you want to go. But Reggie, on the same topic of LGBTQ people, how are they experiencing this moment differently? We have to ask ourselves, organizations like Come Out with Pride and other organizations that are LGBTQ, how do we think that they can show up differently? How do we think that they can do different work to make sure that they're addressing these needs we're talking about?
So that's a very good question. Like, this here today is a brainchild of the board and I having a conversation saying what needs to be done, who needs to be heard. And that's when we now have a new outreach and diversity person on our board that really focuses on each person's experience and how they interact with each other. So a seat at the table is something that was born not only for Black Lives Matters, but for this moment in our time that voices need to be heard. There's so many minority voices out here. They call us the minority. There's so many minority groups that we kind of are the majority. The minority is the majority. We were brought from our countries, from our homes. We had to flee. There's so many different reasons that we're here on this place, this melting pot, America, Orlando, a big melting pot, that our voices need to be heard. Everyone needs to have a piece at the table. So this is the important part, having this outcome. So organizations can really get with the program, really listen, not just act, but really listen to the problems, listen to these voices, seek out the voices. For this, we actually look in the community, who can we reach out to? We reach out to several people and to make this happen. And this is not just our one stop. You're going to hear from us. We're here. We're queer. We're here. We're Black. We're Asian, from Asian descent. We're Hispanic, and we want our voices heard. It's very important for these organizations to not only say, hey, we want to put out a letter saying we support you, but actually show up. So this right here is Pride saying, hey, we're showing up. This is your voices. This is what needs to be heard. If you're a part of it, speak up, and this is what they can do. They can get involved with organizations who's already doing this, make their own in their community, put out a nutnewsletter that sponsors stories of LGBTQ, our Black members in their community, really uplift Black businesses, putting out the great news about protests, because you may hear a protest, they say it's peaceful, but then some kind of in the midst that the police may put out a press release that, oh, they got violent. But we share the truth. If we share the truth and be aware of the truth and seek out the truth, then that is what organizations like this can do. And I'm so proud to be a part and on the board of an organization that thought this was important.
Yeah, and I'm really, honored again to be here with everyone, and thank you to Come Out with Pride for putting a moment like this together, because these are the conversations that we have to have, right? As a community, we have things within our own houses that we've got to fix, as we've clearly laid out here, and that starts by having conversations. It starts by putting voices of color, putting Black voices front and center, to talk about where we've gone wrong and how we get, the train back on the rails. So, Bree, I know that you move in a few different circles. So I wonder if you could, reflect on if you have other thoughts on how LGBTQ people are being impacted differently in this moment, but also, how do LGBTQ organizations support the protests? How do they, support moments like this? How do they support voices of color moving forward in a better way?
Well, I pride myself on circling in the L, the G, the B, the T, the Q, and the plus. Like I am a full-blown lesbian, but I love everybody. I don't you know. And here's the thing, and it really saddens me sometimes, is that I've noticed even within the Afro community, the Black community, they will stick in their lane. So like if they're a lesbian, they're going to stay with the Black lesbians, or if they're trans, they're going to stay. And that's not how I view it. I like to befriend everyone. And I think in order for us to grow stronger, our numbers are only going to go stronger when we come together. And it's such a simple tactic that we could do. And I wish people would really just put that in their minds and realize that we can grow so much stronger if we just bond together. So anybody that I've met at protests, I've been like, hi, my name is Bree. I'm gay and I love everyone, straight, gay, trans, I don't care. I want to befriend you. Let's talk about this. Let me educate you. You educate me. Let's have these discussions. The hard discussions are the discussions we need to have. And bring in our entire community is what's going to help. I've had friends I know that are deathly scared to go out of their house and protest. And I understand that. Not everybody is built for the front lines. I really want everybody to understand that. I get it. I am not frowning upon you if you feel like, listen, I don't know if I can come out of my house, A, because of COVID, and B, because I don't know if I feel okay in protest. And that's fine. Reach out to your LGBTQ spaces, reach out to the people that you feel safe with, that you know have a voice, and tell them what you're feeling and voice that and let that be heard across the board. And I just want these communities to do that moving forward, to say, hey, everybody, make sure your friends are all registered to vote. Make sure your friends are all speaking to each other about this in an open format. You know, if we're not talking about it, it's not going to get addressed. And at the end of the day, I want everybody across the board to just make that as relevant as we want to make our queer rights on like a forefront. Because right now our queer rights are being attacked. Black people are being attacked. So there's so many things that we need to discuss that at this point, the hard discussions need to happen, not just the protests, across the board. Everything needs to be put out in the forefront. And I just want every organization, small or big, to use their platform and put it out there 100% and allow that natural just flow of like understanding and education to happen. And once that happens, it'll be a little more smoother across the board when it comes to people understanding and being educated when it comes to, you know, the rights of Blacks and as well as the rights of the LGBTQ plus within the Black community. Because I agree with Angelica and Nicole, everybody across the board. The trans community has been attacked. Everybody knows the young girl that was just attacked recently in a gas station for no reason because she was trans, but she is a trans Black woman. So guess what? Her Black life matters. And that's why we need to have these conversations. They need to realize that, honey, I might be trans or I might be a lesbian, but I am Black. So you should love me the way you love your community across the board. So that's... Sorry, I get really passionate.
No, that's amazing. And I think like I can so identify with moving in different spaces because I feel the same way as well. And when I sit back and I'm like, what can LGBTQ organizations do? I saw this meme float around. This has been thrown everywhere and it's so true, but it's like, you know, take a look at your executive team and your board and your staff. How diverse are those? Right. How many LGBTQ Black people do you have in those positions, in positions of power? Decision-making positions that can really affect and create change. You know what I mean? I think it's okay. Not every organization is super inclusive at the moment. The key is to want to be. The key is to realize, okay, this may be something that's not the best. What do we do to change it? Yeah. It's all about being solution-oriented. You know what I mean? I think it's different when an organization or someone is defensive about it because then it's like, you know, really? But when someone's just like, listen, I may not be the most inclusive right now, but we want our business to be, that's all you could ever want.
Yeah. And like even my group, because I obviously do burlesque, my head, you know, troop leader, Ivy, came to me specifically, called me on the phone and had that conversation with me. She was like, listen, I want to know how to do this properly. I want to understand what I can do to make this the forefront, but also do it in a positive way. And I looked at her, I said, first of all, thank you. Secondly, we honestly just want you to recognize us and understand that this is a struggle. Like everybody's doing these extravagant things. I don't know if you guys seen the memes, like girls are shaving their heads, you know, the Democrats are going and wearing like African tribal like stars. Honey, call your friends.
They all in their kente cloth, girl.
We didn't need that. We didn't ask for it. You could have just said BLM hashtag and we would have been like, You know,
Right.
you're doing a lot when we just need a little, little just acknowledgement and understanding that our community is hurting and we need to be heard,
Yeah.
And even I work for Vans as well, and they put out a statement, a very long statement, because we've been looted in about 3 of our locations. And they put out a statement saying, we hear you, we accept you. They gave us a paid day off in honor of George Floyd and all those passed away. The CEO went live with everybody in the company, like across the board, and named every Black person that had passed away from police brutality.
Wow.
Like it was a 15-minute moment of silence and like a 30-minute like read off, which made me cry because it's like it shouldn't take 30 minutes to read names. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like no tea, no shade.
But we know what that's like.
We do.
We know what that's like. 30 minutes to call out names.
Yeah,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? So I cried and I was like, okay, well, A, I'm working for the right company, so that's cute. And B, like, yeah, I really felt that. So, I mean, I want to feel that for everybody that works for their company, and as you mentioned, Brandon, like, and everybody, especially you, Nicole, like, you want to look around your company and be like, yo, this is cool. Like, everybody's here. It's pretty much on the same playing field. We don't have to have the same identity, but like everyone is an understanding and it's diverse. Yeah. And you see each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if I can, what I want to say, and I'm going to say it directly to the people watching at home. If you are a white ally, allyship is not a performance. It is a call to action. It is not about just Black boxes on Instagram.
Yes.
It's not about a few Facebook posts here and there.
Yes.
What I've always said is that change happens when we are no longer comfortable hashtagging Black Lives Matter while also benefiting from a system that says those Black lives do not matter.
Yes.
So
correct.
the question for our allies is, what parts of your privilege are you willing to lay on the line tomorrow in order to change the way our country works, right? And I think that's at the root of this dialogue, is that we don't want you to show up with cloth one day and then go back to the status quo tomorrow. We don't want you to show up to a protest one day and then go right back to the way things were tomorrow. We want you to commit today to reflecting on how you show up and move throughout the world and how that's going to change tomorrow to ensure that Black lives really do matter.
Agreed.
I want to say this, like kind of piggybacking off of that, no point intended, but just the fact of, I was talking to a good friend of mine, we were like church buddies from day one. And we got to talking about how churches impute this guilt on you for your sins. And I think that's what I have to do also, is relinquish the guilt of their ancestors.
Yes.
I think they're trying to overcompensate for the issues that have been there from the past, and just living your truth and educating yourself, you've done so much already, so you don't have to overcompensate for what you want to try and show for your Black friends, your Black sister, your Black brother, but also just try and stand in line, and stand with us, hold us up.
There's a sense of,
stop just guilty praise. Be often.
No, it's true. Like there's this sense of, and this may sound crass, but people need to sit in it for a second. We've sat in it for centuries. We've experienced it for centuries. So if it makes you uncomfortable, I'm sorry. It's made us uncomfortable for centuries. You know what I mean? And I think when we say, racism and stuff like that, that is not every white person. And I think sometimes when you're having that dialogue with someone who may be white, they're thinking I'm talking about you. And it's like, no, but we have to sit in and own what our race does as a community. Us as Black people, we do it. We're looked at for this, that, and the third. And all of us walk it. And just because you think Tom does this, you think I do it too. And I have to bear that burden and keep moving. And I think it's the same thing with white people. I think you have to bear it, sit in it, and be one to speak out against it. And not necessarily is it always you when we're having a conversation. It's more radical individuals, racist individuals, things like that.
Yeah, and there is just to kind of put a button on it, there is a privilege to being able to move on from the pain right into action steps, right?
Yeah,
there is a privilege to ooh, this doesn't feel good, so tell me how to fix it, because I don't want to live in that space. And we do have to challenge that privilege, right? And say, you know, we actually do need to just sit with it for a while. If that video, if that story, if that person's life being snuffed out is causing you pain, you need to digest that pain, because that's just a sliver of what the Black community has felt for centuries, right? So there is this sort of privilege to like, okay, I got it. Let's move on to how I can act. There is no checklist to prove that you're an anti-racist. There is no action step coming. It's about changing the way we move throughout the world every single day. Reggie, I want to go to you really quickly, because we talked a lot about allies, but we also know that there is a swath of people out there that don't know the right work to do, maybe have malintent. And so I wonder if you have advice for people, especially me, maybe, so that I don't get so hot in the comment section. When people say, when you say Black Lives Matter and people say all lives matter back to you, how do you approach it? How do you not totally lose it? Block them, unfriend, send them to, banish them to Facebook hell. What do you do?
There's really, for me to answer this, you have to look at individuals' experience. When we're talking about Black Lives Matter, we've all said it's everyone in the Black community. I've seen some really provocative things out there that to show that all lives matter. People are putting out there trying to push that. We as a Black community, we understand that all life matter. We get that. That's great. Life, we love life. Life is good. We want to enjoy that. But when it comes to a section of that is really being persecuted, hurt, tormented for years, and not feeling comfortable in their own skin, can't feel comfortable in their own home. You can't even feel comfortable in your own home, in your own community, going to the grocery store. That's little tiny section of a whole array of life is being really targeted. It's hard for us to be like, yeah, all lives matter when we are every day being torn down. And so it's hard when you see people saying, yeah, all lives matter. Hey, you're good and all life matters, but it's not. That's not your experience. It's not my experience. We all haven't gone through the same thing. We all haven't seen the same struggle. We all haven't felt the same pain. So you can't say that my life, all lives matter, and not pay attention to that and not acknowledge that. And so really, when we're saying Black Lives Matter, we get all life matter. That's beautiful. We want acknowledgement that our lives matter, because right now our lives are the ones that's targeted. We're the ones that's fearful. We're the ones that can't trust our people that are there to protect us. We get the ones that can't protect those who are supposed to lift us up, to give us assistance. We can't trust our government. We can't trust programs that are supposed to be there to give us equal housing, to give us a fair share at a job, equal opportunities. We are every day trying to fight and struggle for just a piece of all lives matter, and that's all we want to the world to acknowledge. Yes, we love all lives matters, but our lives at this moment and for a long time have been under attack. And so it's kind of hard to say, yeah, you're right. But I want you to know that I'm here too. I'm here. I have something to say, and I'm feeling a pain. I'm hurt. And are you comfortable with that? So that's really what we meant when Black Lives Matter. We're here and we're hurting. Can you see that we're hurting? So that's all I have to say on that matter. It's just we want to be seen. We want to be heard. We're a part of that all lives, but we're hurting.
I agree with that. I just think non-POCs need to take that white guilt away. Like, take it away, put it in a little plate, throw it out the window, and now look at the person. Take all of that feeling that you got for your ancestors, as we addressed, the slavery and the segregation, etc. Take that, put it in a nice little container, bury it real deep, and get rid of it, and now address what's going on directly, and that is a certain demographic or race being attacked for this. That's it. Like,
yeah.
That's what needs to be. That's the root. Like, that's the root, man.
Absolutely.
And it's like, all lives do matter, but we're at a point to wherein it seems as though we don't. And that's all we're saying when we say Black Lives Matter, is that we matter too. So I don't know
Mm.
if we need to put two in there, but I don't think we should. I mean, it's just the point of you have to realize that my life has meaning. I have a family, I have loved ones, I have people that care about me. So I shouldn't have to be scared just to walk out my front door. I shouldn't have to be scared to get in the car and drive somewhere. I shouldn't have to worry if my hand is on 10 and 2 when I see a police car behind me. These are things that I don't want to have to worry about on a day to day basis, but they're already embedded in my DNA that these are things that I need to be aware of so that I can make it back home. Every day that I leave my house, every day that I talk to my mom, there's a little prayer that we say. May God keep those big angels around you and get you there safe and get you home safe. That is the same prayer that we pray every single day when she knows that I'm going somewhere. And I'm 42 years old now. I've been having this prayer said to me since I was a kid. And that's a reason for that. There's so many dangers seen and unseen outside that door when you leave. It's just a pleasure and a wonder to even get back home safe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
You're absolutely right. And I thank you for all of that. I'm going to try some of these tactics because my usual response is delete and block and move on. I don't have any time for
Same.
that. I think
Same.
I posted something and somebody commented all lives matter, and my only response was goodbye, and I blocked. That's it. I don't have any time. We're
I love
300 years late for all that
what
all
they're
lives matter stuff.
Right. I
I
love
think
that,
we do
but
need to
I did.
validate what they're saying because, I mean, they all do matter, but you just have to allow them to realize that at this moment in time and
Not
in the
about you.
past, our lives have not mattered.
Right.
We don't see white men getting killed on a day to day basis by police. We don't see white trans women or white gay men. If something happens, there's an outcry, there's an outpour, there's instant
Outrage.
justice.
Literally.
You know what I'm saying?
Moves.
Outrage. Just to even see some of the things that's happened during the protests that may have happened to people that are Caucasian or of a different race or nationality besides black. They're understanding now what we've been talking about all these years.
Yeah,
Right. And
absolutely.
before, I just wanted to say on
Go
that
ahead.
part, we have to educate. I know it's very frustrating when we see that. We just want to be like, oh, you an idiot. You dumb. But to get more people to understand our side, our story, our different, we have to educate. It's so easy to block, but when we do the hard work and we educate the people that do not understand why we say Black Lives Matter and why it's important to make it separate at this point, is to educate so that we can, so then they can go ahead and educate their friends and it'll start a chain because we're still going to fight this fight if and keep hitting the same heads until we actually educate people and get them to understand so then they can spread their word themselves. And then now we have another person that's on our side to kind of move this, push this agenda along to get everyone to a place where we can feel comfortable going outside of our house to check our mailbox, to run in our streets, to feel safe in our own community.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Bree.
I'm sorry. I'm just like 110% because I also think that piggybacks off of our education system. When I've done my debates on Facebook and in person, I have realized, were y'all asleep during Black History Month? Because and also they're getting the minimal kind of education. They're getting, of course, they're getting the slavery, Black history. They're getting a little bit of the protest, like the little sprinkle parts, the little happy parts, when Martin Luther King, made a chain, or when, protesting on the buses, like, the little happy stuff, but they're not getting the root of it. You know what I mean? They're not getting the dirty, grungy stuff that's like when actual looting was happening, because they were taking fire engine and just taking the hydrogen and blowing Black people across the streets just for standing up for their rights.
Kids,
They're not getting that
kids.
education. Yeah, children, adults, it didn't matter who you were. If you had a brown skin, they were blowing you out of the water. And I think that's when we have to realize people need to be educated 110%. They need to go out there and understand when they're going out to vote, even African Americans, when they go out to vote, don't just circle that first line. You know, it's not just the president. What scares me is a lot of people don't realize those other bubbles, Congress, House, what all, yeah, it goes down. Like there's a reason why it's a whole page that looks like it's wild, because it goes fully down, and you have to understand what you're putting your name on and what you're signing up for, and it has to be educated 110% from everywhere, because we are molding our future with these kids in school. And I get it, we talk about it, but not enough. Like the fact that Black history is like a whole month, even Latin history, like 1 month, that's it. The rest
and
of
it's the smallest month. And it's the smallest month.
It's literally the smallest month the entire year, and that's all the education they're getting on Blacks and African Americans.
We're lucky for a leap year.
Yeah. Then it's like, you know what I mean?
And you know, to your point, Bree, I think, you know, what I've shared, and I don't know where I found this, but what I've shared is, you know, the fact that white people believe that Rosa Parks was an old lady in a cardigan sweater like this one, who just happened to sit down on a bus, not realizing she was actually like a 30-something community organizer that agreed to get arrested in protest of racism. The fact that
it was a true movement.
It was a true movement, yeah. And the fact that people still to this day believe that Martin Luther King was some, you know, just some teddy bear who didn't believe in violence, and they pull bits and pieces out of his speeches without realizing that he opposed the system with every fiber of his being. From top to bottom, he opposed the system. But the fact that, you know, we have this canonizing, this lionizing of, you know, these Black movement folks without talking about the dark, gritty nature of Black history and our true history of systemic racism is a function of white supremacy. That's how we continue this narrative of, you know, well, Martin Luther King appeared, he gave a speech about a dream, and then racism went away, right? Well, no, actually, Martin Luther King was brutally murdered. There were protests for weeks after he was murdered. And on top of that, he was one of the most hated. There were riots, looting, there was violence. And on top of that, he was one of the most hated men in the country when he was murdered.
Yeah.
So all of that.
The FBI was trailing him as well.
That's right. So yeah, I think, you know, to your point, Bree, even our education system has functions of white supremacy as a part of it. So I do want to, I know we're going to get to some questions here in the next 3 or 4 minutes, and I'll come to you first, Angelica.
Okay.
I want to, you know, obviously reflect on the things we've talked about a bit. Please feel free to go back to a topic if you want to. But as we kind of round out toward our question and answer, I want you to think about and share with us, where do we go from here? What changes do you hope to see out of all of this? And then, you know, as you're thinking about that, again, Angelica, I'm coming to you first. In about 2 minutes or so, we're going to wrap this up. And we're going to take some questions from the viewers at home. So if you've got a question, if something is burning on your mind, throw it into the comment section. Our production team is going to pop it up here, and we'll be able to address it as a team. But Angelica, to you, what do you, you know, reflecting on the conversation, please go back if you want to, but what do you want to see moving forward?
What I want to see moving forward is, it kind of ties into what I was asking to speak about. I think people need to realize that it took 3 of us on here just to be counted as one person. That's the history of being Black.
Yes.
It took 3 of us to be counted as one. So that's why I say the thing that we can do is vote. I know me, myself, Mulan Montrese Williams, Giselle Barbie Royale, we're trying to get a register to vote, and as well as a party bus to go and vote this year. It is so important. So many people died just for us to have that right, and to continue to allow it to, you know, shape this narrative of why should I vote? Nothing's going to change. Well, that's exactly right. Nothing will change. We can go out in numbers and make our voices be heard and actually change some things. It starts there first. For me, I'm tired of just talking about things. I want to get things done. So I'm looking at a more legislative way of trying to get laws that are in favor of people just being people. I think if we start to realize that we are all individuals, and I think people are scared of that because we're so scared of being alone that we group everything up. These are black people, these are white people, these are Asians, these are, and then we do groups by sexuality, then we do groups by this. But in the long run, it's just you in this shell, baby. Only you can govern this shell. And if you do what you need to do within this shell, do the work that you need to do on you. Try and be kind to the other people in their shell. You know what I mean? And allow us to get out, vote, do things that come to a common ground so that we can have some type of change. We have to keep speaking and letting our voices be heard so that people know exactly what we need as a community.
Yeah, absolutely. I know Bree's having a little bit of audio issues. She'll be back with us in just a moment. But Nicole, quickly, what do you want to see moving forward? Where do you think we go?
Yeah, two big things. Number one is courageous conversation. And what I mean by courageous conversation is a lot of these conversations are people of color with people of color, Black folk with Black folk. We've done this for centuries. Courageous conversation is individuals who may see that their institution, whatever it is that's in their life, their family, their friends, are not maybe the most inclusive, or they're starting to see things that they didn't see. Challenge that. I want people to challenge that. I want you to ask your family, ask your friends, ask your coworkers, call them out on it. You know what I mean? If they're going to be in your life, then I think it's an understanding that that's not how you conduct your life. You're not racist. You know what I mean? Whatever the case may be, challenge your family. And then number two is vote, but not just vote alone. I challenge everyone watching to grab 5 people to vote with you. If you don't know how to vote, if you're not registered to vote, there are resources that any of us on here or any of us that's watching live can get you. But I challenge you to get 5 people to go vote with you, and vote in the favor of the people. Vote in the favor of rights for all.
Yeah, I love that. You listen, I'm all about voting. I'm all about civic engagement. So you have me there. Reggie, any thoughts on where we go?
Yes, from here, I think, again, it's so important to get to know the truth. Know who you're voting for. Not only just vote, but know who you're voting for. See who are not only on a national level, but you're in your community, your commissioners, your senators, your Florida senators, your state senators. Every piece of government has a function that has a piece to do with your life. And don't only worry about the big, oh, let's vote for president. We voted Obama in, we've made change then. If we can do that, we can vote and we can change now. It doesn't have to be a Black candidate on the roster. It could be an ally, someone who supports and aligns with our views that we need to get behind. But we need to know exactly who we're voting for and take that time to get the knowledge and make their voice heard. And even not only just voting, but talk to the people who's currently in the office. Write a letter, send an email, make a phone call. If you don't know how to contact them, Google it. Go online, say, how do I contact the people that are in office that represent me now? Especially if it's not an election year, there's something changed. Make your voice heard. If there's something that's going on, be heard. It is troubling to me as I work with youth in my everyday life, every Monday through Friday, young Black youth who are fearful. You have to let them know that, hey, remember this, you be safe. You're walking home today, send a text to your friend, make sure your mom's at work, this and that. It's very frightening working with youth that you don't know if you're going to see that same child tomorrow. You can say goodbye to that youth who lives in the community. Just walking around the corner is a danger, because someone could stop them and be like, oh, where are you going? And then somehow someone makes it, them stopping them makes it right. So it is so important for you to know your truth, know your candidates, and if there's something wrong, speak up. Don't just sit there and mumble and grumble. I know that's something we like to do. We like to complain, but complain on paper, complain on the internet, complain on social media, and tag your senators, tag your commissioners, call your mayor, get your homegirl to send it to, make a video and send it to them. We live in the 21st century. This is 2020. There's so many ways that we can reach out to people and make our voices be heard. Don't be afraid. Your voice matters. You count. Everything you have to say is important. Make it be heard. And that is what I want this to happen. And not only do it for yourself, but do it for the people that's coming behind you. Empower our youth to also step up. If we have kids in the center that there's a problem, hey, draw a picture. How does that make you feel? Send that picture to your senator. Make sure they know that this is a 7-year-old person in your district that is hurt by this. You have to make every single voice count and let our issues be heard. And that's what I really want to happen out of this.
Yeah. I think you're so right. And what was eye-opening for me is I just went to the protest last Saturday. There were 10 or 12,000 people out there, which is absolutely amazing. And I asked people, do you know what your city or county budget looks like? And I don't know. I just vote for people and they show up and they do their job. And I said, well, do you know that over 30% of the city's budget is going to the police department, while less than 1% of the budget is going to housing? Are you aware of that? So, I think to your point, it's
let's not even start talking about gentrification in those.
That's right. Yeah, and where investment is happening and all of that. So I think, to your point and to the point that's been made so far, it's about understanding where we're at all the way down the ticket and holding those people accountable. It's not enough to just vote people in and then let them do whatever the hell they want. It's also about holding them accountable once they get. We do have a fabulous question that I want to get to, but to Bree, I wonder if thoughts on what you'd like to see moving forward.
I feel like I gotta follow up like the speech of the year. I'm just I'm like
ReggieForFlorida.com. ReggieForFlorida.com.
Yes. I mean, all of you lovely individuals put it into perspective. But for me, moving forward, I want us to make sure that we focus on our future, and that's these kids, as Reggie addressed moving forward. I want us to address to make sure that we are attacking each other, but in a positive way. We are looking at each other and holding one another accountable, that we're making sure that we all understand what we have to do as a community, whether it be the LGBT plus or the allies or anybody, that we look to one another and understand that this fight will not end until we address one another and we understand that we are all on the same page and that we cannot move forward unless we are all moving as one. Our future has always been greater and has moved forward when movements have happened in a large quantity. We've noticed that. If anything happens, when the LGBTQ plus and the allies came together after Pulse happened, I swear I've never seen something so monumental in my entire life. And I'm only 32. But it was the most wild thing I've ever seen. Like the visuals, I was just like, as an employee of Pulse of like 8 years almost, living there and that being my home and seeing Angelica every week because that was my house queen, and knowing that that little space that I called home was moved by so many individuals, it blew my mind. And people woke up and they listened. I had people coming up to me that I knew for a fact had no understanding or love for my community, that came to me and prayed with me, cried to me, and said, we love you, we appreciate you, we understand that you just want to be heard and you're just as human as the rest of us. And that's all we want. Like that's it. That's all I want. It's just everybody to hold each other down and just understand that we cannot do this unless we do this in a large number. And make sure we tell our kids to tell a kid to tell a kid to tell their grandma to tell everybody. And it's just that simple in my eyes.
Can I say this? You know why that was able to happen, Bree?
Why?
It goes back to the old rule. If you give it, you'll get it.
You'll get it. Right.
And that's what happened with Paul. Mm-hmm. We gave people, no matter what they were, who they were, we gave them an opportunity to come there, leave their cares and their worries at the door,
right, and
be themselves. I had actual straight men coming to me crying because they lost their place.
Yep.
That was their place to come and find their girlfriends on college night and girls that go, that was their place. They didn't care about getting hit on. They didn't have to worry about that. It was like my straight girlfriends cried and mourned for Pulse because that was the place where they could just be themselves. Be loved. They ain't have to worry about 50 guys coming over hitting on them the wrong way. You know,
Hmm.
so it was a place full of everything and everybody.
I
So
agree.
that love, just what happened there, it exploded
Yeah,
and it poured out that night. And we got all that love back. So we
I
have to keep doing it. Be mindful of the way you treat others because they might have to treat you a certain kind of way too.
100%.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And so I want to dive into this, audience question. I appreciate all of you tying it all back to doing this together, moving forward together. Of course, voting, voting, voting. Sign up to get your ballot in the mail. So you just put a stamp on it, send it in. Do not let anyone, namely Donald Trump, stand between you and the ballot box in November. Sure, the voice is heard. So the question from the audience, and I'll go to you, Angela.
He got a little break up.
Yeah, I
Oh
think.
Do you think?
no.
Okay, he's frozen, so I'll read the question.
I'm about to
Question:
say,
Do
sound
you
there.
think the recent
Like the
Black Lives
first,
Matter protests lately
do
have
you think
opened the door for more discussion for Black trans men and women? Yes, I do think so, but I don't think that it was just about what happened with Floyd that opened up that discussion. I think that what also opened up that discussion is what happened to Iana the days after that. What happened to Tony the day after George passed away. So it's all of these things have come together, and it's just put us to a place to where it has to be talked about. Um, right now, I do think that Black Lives Matter is at the forefront, but we do need to address the issues that we have within our own community so that we can be a united
Yes.
front.
It's true. It's like I do think that the conversation is had, but I mean, not being negative, but this is what happens. Like when Sasha Garden was killed here, there was a conversation
Oh,
and there was
Yeah,
a good conversation. And then what happens? Us as Black LGBTQ people, we carry the memory, we carry the conversation. We still talk about this and see this violence, but the whole world kind of moves on, and it's just,
yes.
even
Same
though,
thing happened with Mahogany. Same thing happened with Mercedes.
yeah,
These were
Mercedes.
individuals that we had. These were our family members. These were people who performed at Pulse with me. These are people
yeah,
who were at Parliament House with me. And
yeah,
I say this also to the gay community. We have to stop our own individual racisms that we have. I have fought for over 20 something years just to make sure that I had a night for my people to come out and be themselves wherein other races feel as though or have been talked on that it's not good night just because it's called hip hop night doesn't mean that it's black night. And
Speak on it, AJ. Speak on
I'm
it,
there,
girl.
I'm there today. But it's all about that. We have to be the example that we want to see. And
absolutely.
we have to stop, saying that, oh, well, we only give you this night because you all might fight. But I see the same amount of fights on the other nights. And, they just, there's a fear that people have about Black people because we've been deemed this angry race of people, even though we have every right to be angry. Thank God we have not set out to have you all.
Yeah. Oh, you're absolutely right. I mean, I love how you just captured it right there, right? We have so much work left to do that this one moment can't allow for the whole conversation to happen. That while we see
Right.
progress, while we see people at the table, while we see dialogues like this, it's just the beginning. And I do worry sometimes that our allies think that the first open crack of the door, that's it, right? That they've done their work, they've washed their hands,
Mm-mm.
we've checked off the list, but this is just the beginning. The
Yeah.
protests, the riots, the anger, the pain, that is just the beginning of the conversation about what happens next. Police reform, that is only just the beginning of the conversation. We haven't started talking about
Mhm.
healthcare. We haven't started talking about education.
Oh,
We haven't started talking about housing. We haven't talked about any of those things. We've talked about a tiny sliver of what needs to change, and so I hope that allies are buckled up for the road ahead because it's a long one. Reggie, I want to come to you. Speaking of allies, The second question we have is, how do allies traverse the fine line between lifting Black voices in their organization without forcing them to be unwilling spokespeople? And I think really this is about tokenization, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do we lift Black voices without also tokenizing them at the same time?
Ooh,
If you want to write,
That's all you, Reggie. That's all you.
Oh gosh.
It's a hard question.
That's all you, Reggie.
That is a hard question.
Say it. Tell the truth.
Well, I think, go ahead. I think for me, just if it helps the juices flow a little bit, where I've felt the most tokenized is when people didn't bring me in until it was showtime.
Hello?
Right. So my perspectives were never reflected during the strategy process. They were never asked during the planning process. Nobody asked where Black voices were on day one. They waited all the way until showtime, the lights were on, to say, oh, do you mind saying a few words because the stage isn't Black enough?
Or damage control.
Yeah.
Or damage control.
We've done something. What can we do to fix this? It's like,
I've done so much damage control. It's a shame.
Phone a Black friend.
Phone a Black friend.
Phone a Black friend.
Yeah. So Reggie, I don't know if you have thoughts, especially because you're on the board with the organization. How do organizations toe that line?
It is a very fine line. It's a very fine line, and it's really hard because sometimes it can be looked at as a token Black person. We have to be first of all, as an organization, you have to be very upfront and very transparent on exactly what you're looking for this person to do, and actually reach out to communities if there's someone you don't know for a certain position, for performance. Reach out to people you may see. Say, I may not know a person on hand, but reach out to you may know Angelica. Hey, Angelica, I have this thing that we're looking for. We need someone for this. What we're looking for, these skills. If the person themselves, just realistically looking at what the person brings to the table, and not just having a Black person just because, oh, this is a Black person that's on here. Let me get the Black person. We have them here. But actually looking and saying, hey, you have a value, you have a talent. Let me show this talent as this person. And not only that, what can we do to make this open to everyone? What can we do to make everyone comfortable in the situation? But not only wait till the last minute to say, oh, I think we need color, to bring up. I want when you have an event, when you have a forum, say, hey, automatically I want a more diverse person. I want a more diverse panel of people, saying that, and that not having that afterthought after you figure out, oh yeah, let's just put on this thing and we already have people here, and we're not colored enough. We don't have enough flavor. Mm. We don't need the person that brings flavor. We need that person that brings the skills that's needed, because it's a job. It's something that you're going to put a Black person to in a position that is going to show what Black people can do in that position. It's when you find the correct Black person for what you're looking for what is needed, then it's not a token position. It's the best person for the job. And it's going to show through and show that, oh, Black people can do this job because they're good for this job. Not just but oh, you Black, I need you to put this thing on because you Black. But actually looking out, reaching out to people that you know, and getting someone that is meant for that, so that they show us in the light that we are professionals. We can do this. We're in this position. You're not just grabbing a Black person. You're having a Black person that's been through some stuff, because we have talented Black people everywhere that can do anything. Just reach out. If you don't have one, you don't know one, reach out and ask the question. Hey, I'm looking for this. Do you need? Ask for help. Realistically, ask for the help, and we'll help you. Anybody will help you. So that's my kind of take.
I also think tokenism disappears when there's not just one or two Black people or one or two LGBTQ people tokenism disappears when you're so diverse that the individual who's speaking for or doing or whatever the case may be, it's just in the rainbow. You just pick one person out of it. Tokenism is when it's that one Black person, that one trans person, that one lesbian, that one gay person who can go and do everything in that whole realm for you. And and if you're sitting here thinking, oh, maybe I have that, that's how you disband tokenism. Make your entity or whatever this is referring to as diverse as you can, so that you just pick the person right for the job, like Reggie says, versus the one person who fits this mold, checks this box.
Yeah, and we talked about.
So the diversity.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Also, I think diversity starts with you. I mean, get to know more people of different ethnicities and races and creeds, and then you'll have a bigger pool to pull from. That's been partially the problem. Me, I have a voice. I have I can say considerably name in this community, but it was something that I did have to fight for. They felt like every Black person and every Black person that did something was my child. You know what I mean? That didn't mean I knew them just because we Black. But get to know more people.
It's true.
I mean, they're there. These are people who come to, support your businesses. They use their hard-earned money. Get to know your people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I feel like the theme of tonight is do not just hashtag phone a Black friend. They actually have to do the work to diversify, to be inclusive, to bring voices to the table. It's not just about phoning the friend when it's convenient or feels good. So I want to get to the last question here before we kind of round things out. And we've talked a lot about allies. We've talked a lot about white allies. We've talked a lot about, folks in the Black community. The question is, how do other minorities, how do other people of color, so we're talking about Latinos, right? We're talking about Asian folks. How do they best support the Black Lives Matter movement?
Speak your truth. I feel like they, as a POC, and when I say POC, that's not just Black people, that's everybody of outside of the white nature. So that is Latinas, that is Asian, that is Indigenous, that is Middle Eastern, that's all of those. Speak your truth, because it's not just Black people sometimes that are being targeted. I've watched it happen to Latinx. I've watched it happen to Middle Eastern. We have literally watched our president of the United States single-handedly talk about the Asian community as a disease, as a freaking disease. So speak your truth. Be there in the forefront. Be like, I know what you feel like, and you know what? I'm going to stand with you, sister, brother, whoever. Speak your truth. Stand in front of it and know that this is our fight. That's at the protest. Our main goal, the main things that we've talked about is registering to vote and understanding that this is our fight. Because if you don't understand that it's our fight, then you won't ever cope or know what's going on and how important this is for it to move forward. And all POCs should know how this feels. So I feel like when this happened, that Indigenous person, that Asian, that Middle Eastern individual should have been like, yo, not having it.
We have to stop doing it to each other.
Yeah.
We have to stop doing it to each other. That is something that has been done for years. It just so happens that the Black people have always been at the bottom of the totem pole.
But literally sitting there.
Yeah, we have to. I mean, even with the colorism that deals in, each community, Asian people deal with colorism. Latinx people, they deal with colorism. Black people have dealt with colorism since the beginning of time, when Master decided he wanted to go to the outhouse and sleep with the slutty women. So the daughter that he had with her, I put her in the house and you got to go out there in the field.
Yeah.
That's where
she was mixed. She didn't count. She was still Black. Yep, she was still Black.
Yes.
It's true.
So it's that we got to start realizing that, just because you're Asian, I'm not going to treat you any different than, I would treat the next person. We got to be that way with each other and realize that they're all trying to separate us. So let's all get together and try and be one.
Correct. Yeah. I said by my comment earlier, the minority is the majority. There's so many subgroups. There's so many different flavors, colors, shades, that if we come together and we speak up about each other and learn and feel, and we know how each other feel because we've gone through the same struggles, again, like Angelica said, from being in a house slave, from being a field slave. Either way, you're a slave. So we need to have our voices come together. And if I see you're struggling and I say, hey, that's not right, that's my brother, that's my friend. If we see us as everyone being a part of a human race, doesn't matter what that skin tone looks like, it doesn't matter how dark you are, how light skinned you are, we're all here and we all have kind of that moment of being attacked as people of color, you know? So
yeah, Nicole,
together.
Yeah, no, it's true. And especially like Angelica and what Reggie talking about the colorism piece, I'd be remiss to sit here and act like I don't have a privilege, being light skinned, light eyes and everything like that. However, I'm multiracial. I'm half Black, and then the other half is Puerto Rican and Italian. I'm showing up for Puerto Ricans, I'm showing up for Black people, I'm showing up for Italians, Spanish, everything. Why? Because at the end of the day, we have to show up for our people, regardless of the fact, because it's the same thing. It's like people fail to realize, and especially my generation, way back when in slavery time, if you were 1% Black, my grandmother made sure I knew that. 1%, because I would say, oh, I'm mixed. She's like, you're Black. 1% Black.
You're Black.
You're Black. It didn't matter. You know
God forbid you got a kink in your hair.
Yeah, but we're divided as a community. Oh, she's light skinned, she's dark skinned, this and that. We're all Black at the end of the day. We all have to fight for each other because regardless, the opposition looks at us as all the same, regardless if we look at us different.
And we have to attack that within our community too. I'm sorry.
No, I think you're absolutely right, and I appreciate, Nicole, just kind of rounding this out. I appreciate that you talk about privilege, right, and the privilege that comes with some of these different subsects of society, right? I have privilege of my own. I grew up with a family and basically an all-white home, and that has skin included faces that I can't. And so the question for me, right, I know it was around how do other minorities show up right now. The question is still, what parts of your privilege are you willing to lay on the line to fight for justice for everyone, right? And that means me included. That means other people of color outside the Black community included. We all have to be willing to lay pieces of our privilege on the line to fight for justice for everyone. And to your point, Reggie, we're so much larger than that bigger group that we think is out there. Minorities are the majority. If we all stand there, we can lift the entire community up. So really appreciate that. I want to do a lightning round really quick to close out here. And I'll start with you, Angelica. If people take away one thing from our conversation tonight, what is it?
Hope. I would have to say it is hope.
I love that. Yeah.
Show up. Show up, have courageous conversations, challenge your friends, challenge your family, challenge your coworkers, have those tough conversations, and show up.
Perfect. I love that. Reggie?
Educate. Educate yourself, educate your community, educate your children, educate the older people in your community. Educate yourself and get there, and like you did, show up and have some hope in it. But you got to educate yourself so you know exactly what you need to do to get your point across.
That. We've got hope, we've show up, we've got educate. Bree, what do you want people to take away tonight?
I hope you are listening. Like, just listen, open your ears, hear what we are saying. Because to me, at the end of the day, all around, what Blacks want you to understand and do is hear us. So hear us, acknowledge us, and move forward. Like, that's how, at the end of the day, that's how we're going to resume and go in just this big wave, is if you listen and you hear us and you take it in.
Yeah.
Listen,
I love that.
Exactly.
Listen.
Don't just listen.
Listen.
That's right. Active listening. You know what? I have to say another thank you to each and every one of you, not just on behalf of me, because I always love spending time with you and having these really important dialogues, but of course, on behalf of Come Out With Pride, I want to thank all of you for spending time tonight, taking time out of your weeks. I know the last couple of weeks have been really hard. And I know that there's a lot going on. It's exhausting, but these conversations are so important. So thank you from me. Thank you from Come Out with Pride. And thank you to Come Out with Pride for putting on the A Seat at the Table series. We hope that this continues. We hope that this is just the first dialogue. To round this out, I think the one I hope people take away from this is something that I said earlier, and that is that Al is not a performance, it's a call to action. This is about more than just leaving us for an hour and a half to talk to each other on Facebook Live. This is more than just showing up to a protest once or twice. This is more than just putting somebody on a board at an organization and calling at the end. This is about asking ourselves how we show up today, and then how we show up tomorrow, how we show up the day after that, to change the world. And we can really do that together. So this is just the beginning. Conversations, dialogues like this are only the first step to change. I really appreciate everyone for tuning in tonight. I encourage you, if you loved the conversation, please share it on your Facebook. Tell your friends to take a listen. We are just asking that you give us a chance to speak and hear what we have to say. So appreciate everyone. Please have a great night. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.